Michael, there isn't a week that goes by without your knockout show reel popping up on my Facebook page. I just wondered if, fighting away from home as often as you had has, meant that your profile in the UK has suffered. If you'd have been a bigger fighter, if Bellator had more shows over here.
Well, MMA is still growing and obviously massively growing in America, and that's where most MMA fighters would want to be. So I think it's done nothing but positive things for my profile, my brand. So I've got no complaints with being over there. It's just exciting to be back, and it's more of a selfish thing of fighting in front of friends and family. But in general, I feel I'm happy with where the steps that I've taken and the career path I've gone on.
Question for Scott. Scott, you've spoken at length about being a fan-friendly promotion, and you give fans the fights that they want to see. There's been discussion in MMA circles amongst, if you want to call them purists, about the fights such as the Kimbo versus Dada fight, possibly even the Hoyce versus Ken Shamrock fight, that they weren't, in their opinion, not appropriate fights. But I suppose that you would suggest that the numbers from the SSLs and viewerships and live gate would posit otherwise. What is the driving force in Bellator for deciding the marquee, the tentpole fights that are, if you will, from the MMA purist fight, the legitimate ones versus the fan-friendly fights? How do you decide what goes where?
I mean, when we talk about the style of fights that we're going to put together, we're going to do it all. We're going to do fights that the fans want to see. We're going to do the hardcore fights that the hardcore fight fans want to see. I mean, if you go to the event coming up this Friday at the Mohegan Sun, you're going to see some really hardcore. Ben Henderson's going to make his debut with us, fighting Kreshkov, and MVP's back. I mean, it's a hardcore fight fan. And then we do the bigger fights, the fights that cast maybe a bigger net into a wider audience. And the reason why we believe in that is because when I came back into this promotion, and what I mean back was I created and founded a company called Strikeforce, right? Ran it for many years, sold it, and I came back and I said, what's going to be different, right? And it was actually my son that inspired me. He said, you know what? I don't watch MMA anymore. He's like, I go, why? I go, what do you know what? Like usually you come over a house on a Saturday night and watch fights, and because me and my friends are not into it anymore. So it made me realize that some of the old fan base is starting to dissipate, right? And there was a time where MMA was shrinking a little bit. And so I said, okay, we have to mix it up. We're going to have to bring in fights that, like I said, cast a bigger net. And that's what we did. And so, that's why we have the Kimbo fights. James Thompson and Kimbo Slice was a competitive matchup back in 2008, and I think it'd be very competitive. I think they're both going to train hard. It's very personal. You can see it. I know Kimbo feels the same way, and he'll probably, he'll be able to tell you when he gets out here. But it was really about bringing the old fans back, right? The old fans that maybe had left MMA, and I think we've accomplished that. I think our numbers prove that we accomplished that, and I feel good about it. So that's where the company's headed. We're going to do some fun fights. I call them fun fights. We're going to do fights that the fans want to see, and then we're going to do the hardcore fights. I mean, to me, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You can go to, since the Kimbo fight, we've probably done 5, 6 hardcore fights for the hardcore fans. And, once in a while, once or twice a year, we're going to do some fun fights, and, that's kind of what we're going to do.
Question then for Hoyce, just coming on the back of your fight against Ken Shamrock. Is that the end of you in MMA circles then, or is there something that Scott could ever say or do that would tempt you back into the cage?
I'm like, listen, you go, sorry, I can't answer that.
We've met and spoken several times, we have the same problem all the time. Is there anything that Scott could ever say or do as regards offering a fight to you in the future that would bring you back to the cage following your last match against Shamrock?
That's a very tough question. I mean, I thought I was out, and Scott brought me right back into the game.
So
maybe. I'm going to say that, but I'm going to say this.
Is there anybody that you would like to face within the cage?
I never picked my opponents. I never chose. They present to me and say, okay, let's do it. They're the promoters. They are the ones that think will be a good matchup. I'm a fighter.
Question for Scott. Just picking up on your point about fun fights, Michael Morgan, World TV. How far across the spectrum in terms of fun fights would you be prepared to go? We had an announcement, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, that Aaron Chalmers has actually expressed an interest in fighting. Would Aaron Chalmers be on your radar? I mean, we've not seen him on television for a while, but Alex Reed is a fun fight or a fan favourite. Is that something that you'd be prepared to go down the road of?
Yeah, so I can tell you this, we are talking to, I think it's Mr. Reed we're talking to? Yeah, we are talking to him, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll keep you posted.
Okay, a question for Paul. Paul, we've spoken time and time again. You've billed yourself as Paul Belt Collector Daily in many of our conversations. Where does this rank in terms of importance for you? Is it more important to get that redemption, or is it more important for you to get that belt?
Yeah, my primary focus obviously is being the champion. This fight was, it didn't have to be sold to me, but it was a very stupid fight for me not to take. As far as how lucrative it could possibly be for me, I've got 2 kids, a beautiful girlfriend, and a growing property business. I'm diverse like that. So yeah, it was lucrative enough for me to sign the fight over, potentially pursuing a belt straight out. Plus, I have 100% belief in myself and my coaches and what we have planned, that this is going to be light work. So, the cost check is nothing. This is going to be real light work. I've developed so much since then. Regardless of what he says about fighting bums, the only ones who be sat on their bum come the 16th is you, boy. Trust me. Trust me.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Again, July 16th, tickets go on sale, pre-sale tomorrow at Ticketmaster and is it Access? Access. And then tickets go on sale this Friday to the general public. And if you've never been to a live event at Bellator, it's something unlike you've ever heard, seen, or felt. It's a great show, and come on down. Thank you.